Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on my channel, and this is going to be a pretty quick one this time. I just want to go over pulled handles. So, anyone who's had me, I know where this is going. Pulled handles, I'm going to show you a couple of things about them. First off, the classic version of doing a pulled handle. You're going to start with a wedged piece of clay that generally you're going to spiral wedge. So basically what you would do if you were going to throw the clay on a potter's wheel. So you've got something that is kind of conical. And classic way of doing this is that you are going to stretch this out a little bit. There we go. All right, and you've got something that's kind of like a carrot shape. And you get your water, and you're going to smooth the clay by drawing it through your fingers. Go. And you start off by making it kind of like more of just a carrot. Then you might start shaping it down so that it is a flattened, tapered carrot shape. And as I'm pulling, I'm basically going from one orientation to the other, kind of back and forth. My hand isn't symmetrical. So in order to keep the handle symmetrical, I have to keep flipping my hand over. All right, so you would do something like this, get it all stretched out, put it down on a canvas or a sheet or paper or something, cut that off, and then you would use that later in order to put it onto a pot, shape a handle. All right, so downside to this. I've taken perfectly good semi-solid clay, added water to it, stretched it out into this shape. I now am going to have to touch this, still put this on the pot, and then shape it into a handle. There's a lot of lost time because I've added that extra stage of putting water back into the clay. And I just ended up with something that's it's been touched a little bit too much. All right, so instead of pulling out your carrot, what if you simply roll out a carrot? Here we go. And if you need it to be a half round like that, you can just carefully flatten it. Now it's a half round. I can cut the end, a little bit of an angle, and I'm going to put this on the pot. Rather than actually taking this piece itself and putting it onto the pot just as is, if I do this, in order to get it to stick, I'm going to put some pressure, and I'm going to kind of end up sort of pinching the end in. So rather than pinching it, at this stage, I'm going to use my fingers, and I'm going to kind of flare that out a little bit. So I'm going to pretend again. I'm going to pretend that this is not a fired piece of bisqueware. We would score our clay. We would score our handle material. And then we would put the scored clay onto the scored pot. All right, then I'm going to go around it and kind of make sure that it's fastened around the edge. That little bit of a flare that I gave it gives my fingers a place to go. I'm kind of getting that to be stretched out. And then if I want to blend the handle into the body, now's when I want to do that. I would score, again, pretending, around the pot. And you're never going to want to use a clean sponge in order to wipe away at clay. Clay bodies are actually made up out of a mixture of different dry materials, and those different materials all have different particle sizes. So if I take a clean sponge, clean wet sponge, and I wipe away at my clay body, what's going to happen is it's going to pick up all the fine material, and that's going to end up being on the sponge. And the surface is going to feel like sandpaper. So rather than doing that on the piece that I want to stay smooth, I take a scrap piece of clay, preload my sponge with that nice fine material, and now when I clean it up on here, it won't remove that fine clay, and it won't end up being all unpleasant to the touch. This is especially important for things like edges of mugs, anything that is going to touch your mouth. You don't really want it to feel like sandpaper when people are touching it. All right, so I can get that blended around like that. And now, there's been really no water added to this clay at this point. Now, I pull it. And because I've added so much less water, and because I'm so much further in the process at this point, shaping it is going to be a lot quicker, easier, and the handle is going to support itself a lot better. All right, now a quick note about what makes this a pulled handle. The name is very specific. So when I'm doing this, I'm not going slow like this. If I go slow, that's not really pulling a handle. I need to pull quickly. And when I pull quickly, if you were to slow the video down, you would see that the end of the handle vibrates really, really fast as I'm pulling down. And I'll actually feel this almost becomes a solid. And as I pull, my hand hits this and it stretches the clay out. So only quick motions are going to stretch this clay really evenly and easily. And one problem that a lot of people run into when they're doing their first pulled handles is that they find that they're getting thin or thick spots in the middle. And that's because you're squeezing, but you're not pulling quick. I'm not really squeezing here all that much. I'm mostly relying on that vibration at the end to make the whole handle pull down and stretch as I'm doing it. Again, I'm going in two different directions because my hand isn't symmetrical. And when I get to the end, I'll kind of look at it and make sure that it's straight. Final pull to make it straight. Then I would dip my scoring tool in water, score the bottom of the pot. In this case, I'm just going to put a little water there. I'm going to then stretch this back on its curve a little bit, bend it down. I'm going to look at it from this direction to make sure that it's actually straight. It almost never is. Nudge it over a teeny little bit. Now I can pinch off my extra. Don't need that. Grab my hand off. Push the extra material into place. If I need to, I can blend this into the body of the pot. And this goes easier with a dry finger than a wet finger. My sponge is still nicely loaded up. I'm going to add a little bit more just in case. Clean that off. There we go. Nice, clean. I don't have to touch it anymore. It's finished. All right, now you're asking yourself, why are you putting handles on bisque pots? This is how I was trained. In production wheel throwing, we would have people who were learning how to make the pieces throw just straight cylinders and bisque fire them. And because they're porous, the wet clay will stick to it, and you can use the bisque for practicing pulling your handles. Pulled handles especially, they have the same qualities, the same line quality, the same feel as wheel thrown pieces. And just like learning how to wheel throw, making them consistent and high quality is all about just numbers. You just need to pull a lot of handles. So frankly, I suggest that my students make 3 to 5 handles for every piece that they're going to put a handle on it. You should get out your bisque cylinder, and when you're ready to put handles on your mugs, just make 10 handles. Make a handle, cut it off, put another handle on. Just kind of get in the rhythm. And you want to be doing handles as early as you're learning how to throw, because invariably you're like, oh, I don't like handles. Handles are awful. They're really tough. And you'll finally get a cylinder that you care about, a shape that you want to put a nice handle on, and you don't know how to make handles. So don't get to that point. Make it so that you're doing your bad handles when you're doing your bad pots, and then when you're doing good pots, you're doing good handles. You will thank me later. So it's much, much better if you can do it that way. Anyhow, so that's a basic pulled handle. I'll do some other videos on varying degrees or different types of pulled handles. And I'll be doing a longer video on kind of all the other ways that you can approach putting handles on pieces. But a nice simple one to start you off. So, all right, thanks for joining me.